Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pete CD Vinyl World. Today, what I'm going to do is do what hundreds or even maybe thousands of people have done, and that's rank the albums of Led Zeppelin. Uh, this is my own personal ranking, and they're a very, very tough band to rank, much like the Beatles, since all of their albums are above average. I would say very good or better. Um, and they only have really 8 studio albums, 9 if you're counting Coda, which I am since they have so few. And when I was going through these, the slightest little thing ranked higher, ranked an album higher or lower for me, since they're all so good. So these are more like my personal preference or albums that I would grab for Led Zeppelin ahead of others, which might make my ranking a little odd to some, but we're going to start now with my least favorite, or with the one I ranked the lowest. And these are more ranked based on which one I'm going to grab to listen to, because, like I said, it's tough to rank them. But I would say overall, the one I'm probably going to grab least to listen to is In Through the Outdoor. So it's their final studio album. A lot of John Paul Jones influence on this one. A lot of organ and keyboard on here. Still has a lot of classics. In the Evening, All of My Love, Fool in the Rain. The ending track, I'm Gonna Crawl, is sort of a throwback to their more bluesy roots. But the reason I ranked it lower than the next one, which is going to be Coda, is because there's some songs on Coda that I feel should have been on In Through the Outdoor, like Wearin' and Tearin'. How did that not make the album, but Hot Dog made In Through the Outdoor, So I put Coda a notch above it just because I find this more enjoyable to listen to overall. This has a few tracks that were recorded for In Through the Outdoor, along with a couple of live tracks, a drum solo. Another version of I Can't Quit You Baby. So I decided to include this in the rankings just because there's, like I said, there's so few Zeppelin albums to begin with. But overall, I'm going to probably listen to this before In Through the Outdoor. And the thing about In Through the Outdoor, I think it's good that Led Zeppelin broke up at this point, because this really hints at what Robert Plant's solo albums are going to sound like in the 80s, and that probably would have been the Zeppelin sound, I feel, at that point. Next up, I'm putting Presence. Probably the most underrated Led Zeppelin album, in my opinion. It's very enjoyable from start to finish. Probably the two most well-known songs on here are Nobody's Fault But Mine, which gets a lot of airplay on classic rock radio, and Achilles' Last Stand, which to me is probably one of their most metal or metallic songs. I would say it's definitely a big influence on prog metal, if that's possible. Even Dream Theater did a cover of it on their Change of Seasons EP. But overall, it's a good, consistent album. The rest of the songs are pretty good. Just like In Through the Outdoor ends with a bluesy track, T for One, which I really enjoy. And really sounds good, this album. I think the production edges out In Through the Outdoor. So, in my opinion, they were sort of at their peak from 75 through 77. Even though this is not considered one of their better albums. They just sounded like that huge, big Thunder of the Gods band at that point. Next one I'm going to rank is probably a surprise to most, but I'm going to rank Led Zeppelin 4 here. And not because it's not great and classic. Part of the reason is that most of the songs on here are the ones you hear on radio all the time. Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Stairway to Heaven, Misty Mountain Hop. Two of the songs, Battle of Evermore and Go to California, I'm not that crazy about. When the Levee Breaks, I know it has that great drum sound and everything, but to me that's kind of like a boring track as well. So out of the 8 songs, I think 5 are really, really good. Obviously, all-time classics. But most of them, I don't really need to hear again, right? Stairway to Heaven. Four Sticks is really cool. It's not one that you hear on the radio a lot. Not that I'm sick of any of these songs, because if I hear them on the radio, I never turn them off, unlike some songs from other bands. But I'm ranking this a little lower, too, because I think the production's a little weak on here. They seem to go from having a great sounding album to a weak sounding album production-wise. The sound of this album, production-wise, almost reminds me of Led Zeppelin 2. So they took a step backwards in that way for me. So that's why I'm ranking at that position. Next up, I'm going to put Houses of the Holy. Again, another great album. I'm ranking it a little lower because of a couple songs like The Crunge and Dancing Days, which I just think are okay, and Do You Make Her, Die Your Maker, whatever. But song remains the same. Over the Hills and Far Away, The Ocean, to me, are 3 of my favorite songs from them. Album sounds really, really good. Probably, I would say this and Physical Graffiti, their best sounding albums, as far as I can tell. This is actually the first CD I ever bought myself with my own money. It was Christmas of, I think, 86. I got a CD player and a couple CDs, but then this is the first one I went out and bought in the mall. So it's part of their initial CD releases, which a lot of people don't like the sound of, but I think this one actually sounds really good. Next up, I'm going to put the debut. One of the all-time classic debut albums. Probably definitely overall their bluesiest albums. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, You Shook Me, Dazed Confused, How Many More Times, I Can't Quit You, Baby. So all blues-based songs. So, yeah, definitely some of Jimmy Page's most ferocious playing on here. And a lot of songs on here, they never play, they didn't play live too long after this, like Good Times, Bad Times, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. So definitely still an enjoyable album for me. Just edging that one out slightly for me is Led Zeppelin 2, only because like every song on here is killer. Bring It On Home is awesome. Heartbreaker, Livin' Lovin' Made, of course, A Whole Lot of Love. Thank You is one of those songs, like, it's been, I guess in the last 20, 25 years, is one of those songs that sort of come out of nowhere to be this, like, big hit that everyone loves. But to me, if I never hear that one again, that's fine. What Is and What Should Never Be, sort of a jazzy, bluesy song. Again, though, probably one of their worst produced albums as far as... it has a very almost dead sounding album. I think this one came out in 69, so the production for me, this one is sort of dated a little bit, unlike a lot of the others. When I hear this album, I definitely think that this is definitely produced in the 60s, as opposed to a couple years later, Houses of the Holy, which sounds bright and crisp and alive. This one sort of has that dead sound of a lot of 60s albums to me. But that's just my opinion. Number 2. I'll go back and forth which one's my favorite. This one, Led Zeppelin 3, I love just because it's so diverse and it has a little bit of everything that they've done. And again, it has a lot of songs that aren't played to death on the radio and don't hear all the time. You know, Out on the Tiles, Tangerine. Just overall a very solid album. It has a little bit of everything they've done over the years, from blues stuff, Since I Beloved You, hard rockers, Out on the Tiles, immigrant songs, and acoustic stuff, Friends, Tangerine. So definitely one of those albums that sort of was not forgotten about, but since they didn't play a lot of songs from this album live, it was sort of underrated in my opinion, just like Presents Baby, but a lot better. And my number one, I'm going to go with Houses of the Holy. I'm not Houses of the Holy. Physical Graffiti. It has the song Houses of the Holy on here. To me, this is the... When someone wants to know what is Led Zeppelin overall, I would give them this album because it has the whole kit and caboodle of what they do. Everything from hard rock, the Rover, slow blues stuff, some rockabilly, long drawn out songs, acoustic stuff. But the sound of this is really good. And for some, how they did it, I don't know. But a lot of these songs were recorded different periods, 72, 75. But they all made the album sound cohesive and produced at the same time. And this really sounds like what they sounded like live at that time. Very powerful. Drums sound great. So that's my number one. Maybe it'll be Led Zeppelin 3 another day. But... and it's one of those double albums that doesn't drag on and on and on, where you're like, oh, this shouldn't have been a double album. This is two great individual albums. So, yeah, I wouldn't say there's any filler on here at all. And how could there be? Because since they have so few studio albums to begin with. But anyway, if you like these videos, please subscribe and let me know what your rankings are or your top 5. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.